Hello everyone, welcome back to another podcast. This is Adway Girish, a recent graduate from IIT Kharagpur. And in today's video, we have with us Adway Girish. He was my classmate at FITG Bangalore during our JE prep, post which he went to IIT Bombay to pursue electrical engineering after getting an AIR of 43. Currently, he's pursuing a PhD at EPFL Switzerland. And in today's video, we're going to look at what brought him to research, and if somebody is interested in research, what are the steps they can take in order to pursue it, and what a day-to-day life as a PhD student at EPFL looks like. So let's get started.
Okay, so the way PhD applications work in general is that there's two types of systems. One is this American system where the admission is centralized and there are committees that collect a bunch of applications and the committee decides some people to take, and then students just go and work with in whatever lab they apply to. Fine. But on the other side is this European system where there's a more fundamental difference, and this is that in the American system usually people join immediately after a bachelor's. So they have an undergraduate, which is usually 4 years or something, and then they have a graduate program, which is technically a PhD, but they might also do a master's during it, but it's one program. But in Europe, the bachelor's typically 3 years. So almost everybody who wishes to continue doing something technical also does a master's, which is around 2 or 3 years. So the people who apply for a PhD in Europe are typically have done 6 years of education, close to 5, 6 years of education, and then they apply for a PhD. So the typical European PhD is only around 3 to 4 years, but the typical American PhD is 5, 6, 7 years. Now, EPFL wants to compete with the American universities, so they are following the computer science. Okay, all of this is mainly about computer science, engineering types of fields, and EPFL is following the American system. They want to hire the best students who come from India, China, Turkey, other Asian countries, and because these countries have 4 or 5 year bachelor's programs, so they want to hire. So none of them would want to come to Europe and then do another master's before applying for a PhD.
Yeah.
They would just prefer to go to the US instead. So to have this competition with the American universities, EPFL also allows for this American system where you can do a PhD that is 5 or 6 years long, and you can join with just a bachelor's. You don't have to do a master's. If your bachelor's is 4 or 5 years, then you can join without a master's. Okay, and now how did I end up at EPFL?
Yeah.
Just by this admission, the process, they have a deadline in December, around mid-December. This is the standard deadline across all American universities and EPFL typically. So you apply to the portal. You apply with your CV. You have to write a statement of purpose describing what you've done so far, what you want to do, what is your plan for the future, these kinds of things. Typically around 1,000 words. And you also need 3 letters of recommendation from professors. The more famous the professor, the stronger the letter is. The more directly it talks about you, the better it is. So this is the sort of package that you apply with. And then the committee looks at your application. They might have interviews. Depends on the university, depends on the professor who's taking the admission, and so on. And then finally you get admitted. That is the process. That's how I ended up at EPFL.
I've heard that. Just now you just mentioned that EPFL is different from other European because it's following the American standards, right? So, did
Yes.
you apply to any European standard colleges?
Yeah, so typically most programs do need a master's. The only, at least for my specific field, for information theory, the only other area that I really found, the only other university that I found was Cambridge. But even at Cambridge, it's not through a centralized committee. So there you apply directly to the professor. The professor looks at your application, and if they are happy with you, they hire you. That's it. End of story. But at places like EPFL and most American universities, there is a committee comprising of professors in different fields. They look at all the applications and then they decide, okay, these are the top students who have applied to us. We will hire them.
Yeah, you did a corporate intern also, right? So, how did you get motivated towards research and you left a corporate job behind?
So I think even before I joined IIT, it was like a childhood dream. Okay, not a childhood dream, but when I was in 8th, 9th, 10th, I wanted to do a PhD eventually and do research because at that time I had no idea what research was. I didn't know anything. Obviously, I didn't know anything about information theory, but even more basic stuff, I had no idea what I was talking about. I just liked the idea of, because I thought that research is about solving problems and stuff, which is correct. And I liked that general idea, which is why I always wanted to do research. before IIT. And then I got to IIT and I started, we had to do some courses. I liked what some of the professors taught in the courses. And I thought, okay, fine, I am interested in this. So I spoke to these professors. I told them, what can I do some sort of project with you? I like these topics. So I liked maths and applications of maths in other stuff. So this is what I went with. And sure, this professor gave me a small project to work on. I started working with his PhD student, and this was my first experience with research. And this was around in my third semester to fourth semester, which is when COVID started. So then I went home, and I was stuck at home basically. But I was getting frustrated by research, and so this is the thing that happens. Research is a very frustrating thing to do, but I was too young. I don't know if I was too young, but it was a lot of factors. I was at home, I had other stuff going on, and it was all in all not a good time. And you know, so there was this project, and then I started another project thinking that maybe it's a problem with this
The
topic.
project.
Maybe I'm just not
Huh.
interested in this topic. So I started that other project, and even that, I mean, I kind of lost interest because I don't know. Maybe if I started the project at a different time, maybe if I was still in college, I would have liked that more. But it was just not. I just had no interest. I had no motivation to do anything at that point, basically.
Okay.
So fine, and then I decided, fine, I'm stressing myself out too much. I have had too much. I mean, my expectations of myself were too high, and fine, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be worried so much about, um, I mean, I went. So there's some more background is because of my JE rank and all. When I joined the batch,
Yeah.
my I was of all the people who joined electrical IIT Bombay, my rank was the highest.
Yeah.
But and then when we started doing courses and there were grades and all, my CPI was I wasn't in the top. I mean, I think I was after the second semester I was 27th in the batch or something,
Whoa.
which made me feel horrible. And I had this was very stupid reaction from me, but this is what I felt, and all this added to my sense of just feeling like a failure. Basically, everybody's going to
Dude.
think, oh, this guy had so much potential, but he was such a failure. All this was obviously in my head. Um, yeah, so this is background. So when I started doing these projects and they were going nowhere, I felt lost. I felt very, I mean, I was losing
Demotivated,
hope with
yeah.
everything. Yeah, and then the fifth semester started. So fifth
Okay.
semester is the yeah. So in the fifth semester, you apply for the summer internships
Yeah, yeah.
because we do our internships after our third year. At least, yeah, I was in BTech, so I had a total of 4 years. I had to do it in the summer after my third year. And so at the start of the third year, fifth semester, all these companies came for internships, but I hadn't even considered. So there were other people around me who had already been preparing for all these internships. People who were interested in quant stuff had been doing quant for a long time. But I was so interested. I wanted to do research, so
Yeah.
I hadn't been preparing for anything. I hadn't even taken DSA or anything. I couldn't apply for a software job basically at that point. So I was starting to get very worried. But then I saw that there was Texas Instruments. They came with a signal processing profile. So yeah, the projects that I had tried with these professors were broadly on signal processing related areas. So I thought, okay, signal processing is what I know best. I will apply for this. And fine, they had a test, they had interviews, which went well. I got in. Okay, good.
But why did
Yeah.
you choose you did you choose research because it was your childhood goal, or since you had tried corporate, like what was wrong with corporate that you didn't want to continue that?
Okay. So my work at TI also was kind of a semi-research role, not exactly research, but it was the work I was doing was basically trying to find new things. So I mean, it's close enough. That's basically what research is. So what I did not like about the corporate environment, I'm pretty sure I would have liked it more if I went to the office in person because I think it's nice just being around people. But at home, it felt like, um, well, there wasn't. One was that I wasn't free to do. I worked on an interesting problem, yes, but it wasn't a problem that I came up with or I even thought about before I started working on it. But with a PhD sort of research, you do have typically more freedom. This depends on your advisor, obviously. But typically, you are likely to have more freedom when you join a program when you do a PhD because it's
Okay, okay. So that's what you were looking for. You want freedom to do
that was one
whatever you
thing.
want.
Yes. Yeah, but at the end of my internship, I was happy enough to join TI as a backup. So apart from my PhD applications, so if I got rejected from everywhere, I would have joined TI. I would have probably stayed there now also.
Okay, okay.
So
Okay,
I was
that.
happy enough with corporate based on my experience that I was happy enough to consider it as a backup. But since I was happy with the work, since I was convinced that I could actually do research and enjoy research, I decided that I should actually apply for a PhD.
Okay, that's nice. So, like, where all did you apply for, and why did you choose Switzerland over any other offers you got?
Uh,
And what all offers
okay.
you got? You can say that also.
Yeah, in Europe, I applied only to Switzerland and Cambridge, to
Okay.
EPFL and Cambridge.
Hmm.
Um, and in the US, I applied to MIT, Stanford, Berkeley. No, I did not apply to Berkeley. So MIT, Stanford, um, Caltech, UC San Diego, UCLA. Um, okay, there were a total of 10. So there's five here, plus EPFL Cambridge, and then three more. What?
How many applications did you
Uh,
write?
10 applications is the standard.
Yeah. Okay. Like a fun fact, like I met Adway during my trip in Europe. I think we met in Lucerne, so
Yeah.
that time also we talked a lot. So you told me about so many interesting facts about Switzerland and how it's stable and all that. So can you just tell us about? Yeah, just now you made a comment also like it's more stable than US. So like what all factors were you considering, or did you consider these before applying, or you're saying it just after going there and just observing it firsthand?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that Switzerland was a politically neutral country, things like that.
Hmm.
But, and I knew Switzerland had better public transport and stuff, better
Hmm.
quality of life in general.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so these are things I knew. And I just, from a long time, I haven't really liked the US as a country because
Okay.
lots of issues.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I still think that if I had gotten into MIT, I would have probably,
You
almost certainly, I mean, surely
you would
gone
have
there.
gone. Hmm.
Stanford, Caltech, I'm not so convinced.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, yeah, that is sort of my situation. And this depends on information theory because it's a very field specific thing, advisor specific thing. There are so many factors to look at when you apply.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Because, I mean, one thing is doing research, yes,
Hmm.
but the best researcher as an advisor may not be a very good person. So
Hmm.
it might be difficult to handle them.
Okay.
That's another thing.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
there's a lot of factors to consider. And ultimately, when you apply for a PhD, it's also you're going to live in that place for 5 to 6 years. So you have to
Yeah.
be, you have to have a life outside of just research and
Hmm. Hmm.
your lab.
So yeah,
So
then just tell us a little bit about your life in Switzerland, like how exactly, like day to day, what do you actually do in research, and how does it
yeah.
go about? Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So
that
during
would be
the
great.
semester, we have to be a teaching assistant every semester. I
Hmm.
have to take exercise sessions.
Hmm.
So I just have to upload them on Moodle and somebody will come and, I mean, the students will download them, try to solve these homework sheets. I will
Hmm.
stick around in the classroom. If they have
Hmm.
any doubts, they call me.
Hmm. Hmm.
I go help them. This is typically what happens in the TAing session.
Yeah,
And this
yeah.
is for around 2 hours per week. A typical day is just I go to work. I try to work on some problem that I've been thinking about. I
Hmm.
might have a meeting with my advisor, typically once a week.
Hmm.
If I'm working on some other projects, as I am now, I typically also have a meeting for them, maybe once or twice a week. Yeah, sometimes there are talks that happen by visiting researchers, visiting professors from other people from other places.
Hmm.
They come, they give some talks on whatever they're working on, and I try to attend talks even if they're not in my area because I just like listening to talks. It's very interesting to see how people present stuff. I like this sort of thing. I like seeing how there is some idea and so you can explain one idea in many different ways
Hmm. Hmm.
and some people are much better at it than some other people. So I like seeing talks just to so some people might be very good researchers but they just don't know how to give a talk. And yeah, I
Yeah.
like going to talks just to judge them basically. That's what's happening.
That's interesting. So, talking about research, like what is a typical career progression in research, and how
Hmm.
does like where do you see yourself after finishing a PhD? Like generally, what happens, and what are the potential career options after PhD?
Yeah, so I think they showed us some statistics when we joined the PhD program, and I think around 60% of people end up going to industry. Yeah, this was surprising even to me. So 60% going to industry is there's multiple reasons. One is that the kind of work you do in a CS department work has a lot of applications in a lot of companies, and they do want research scientists in those companies' labs. Like Apple, Google, Zurich have a lot of big offices. They have a lot of research teams and they want to hire research scientists for obvious reasons. So this is one thing. And the second reason is that the academic job market is extremely competitive because there are so many people getting a PhD now. It's a fairly saturated sort of area. So unless you have a very, very strong profile, it's very difficult to get a good academic position at a good place. And the problem with getting an academic position at a not so good place is that you might find it hard to get good students, which is a very big problem. The point is that a PhD is just a learning experience where you learn a lot about some specific area. You can also be broad, but it's you just understand a subject to a whole other level. Some people say that research is to make the life of, to make life better, to save the planet from destruction. Fine, all this is noble goals. I get it,
Yeah.
but for me, it's just about. I like problem solving. This is what I enjoy doing. So if you're driven only by a motivation to solve problems and have fun in general, it's likelier that you will go down the academic trajectory if you manage to get the good enough profile by the end of your PhD. And otherwise, if you have a motivation to do to make change in the real world, then it's likely that you will join industry because that is where they have the money, that is where they have the motivation to actually make a real difference in the world.
How is the stipend system in EPFL and how is it different from other European as well as American counterparts?
Okay. So I'm not so sure about the other European counterparts, but at EPFL at least, all PhD students get the same salary, and this is 50,000 ish, 50,000, 55,000 francs
55,000
per year.
francs. Okay.
Per year. Yeah. Okay, this
Okay.
might seem like a lot when you convert it to Indian rupees,
Indian
but
rupees, yeah.
don't convert it to Indian rupees. Switzerland is extremely expensive.
Okay.
That's
How
all I'll
much
say.
you typically save in a month?
I save
After
from
tax.
500 to 1,000 francs a month.
Okay. And is there a lot of tax also in where you
Switzerland is relatively low.
as
It's a
compared to
tax haven. That's why people smuggle money to Switzerland. Okay,
mm-hmm.
this is going on the internet. I should not say these things. But
And
the tax rates are very low. Tax rates are very low. Yeah, you got it. Tax rates are very low in Switzerland.
okay.
Um, and in the French part, I think the tax rates are slightly higher. But even then, I don't think I'm paying more than 10% in terms of tax. And this is
Okay.
including the money that goes to the retirement savings fund and some other public pension fund and so on. So all
Okay.
this totally is still less than 10% of my salary,
Okay, but
basically.
still like it's very expensive to live there.
Yeah, so expensive is things that you do are very expensive. Train tickets are expensive. Food that you buy is very expensive. So, so even then, even if you eat out for all your meals at a reasonable, if you go to some fancy high-end Michelin star restaurant, then yes, you will be bankrupt. But
Yeah.
you can eat from the campus cafeterias every day, no problem, and you will still have some money left over.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so
That's
this is the situation at EPFL. At ETH Zurich is the German counterpart of EPFL.
okay.
It's the same. So EPF is the French translation of ETH. It means Federal Institute of Technology.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, ETH Zurich is an equivalent basically. It's like the IITs here. There are two of them in Switzerland. So ETH Zurich has a different system for its PhD students, and there some departments, some labs specifically, have a higher salary for their PhD students than some other labs. So some people earn more than us, some people earn less than us. That's
Okay.
how it is here.
Okay.
For the rest of Europe in general, I think stipends. I think France is notorious for having low stipends. But anyway, all this you can see on the websites of whatever place
Website.
you're applying to. So all this is stuff you should check. You shouldn't end up going there and realizing you have no money to make it through. And then you're struggling to eat food. Basically, that shouldn't happen.
Right. So, do
Yeah.
you have any final words of advice and motivating them towards research?
The only thing I would say is to explore different things and come to a decision that you are happy with. I mean, don't be swayed by some moments of failure like I was. I mean, at some point, I thought, no, I cannot do research. This is too hard for me. I am stupid. Blah blah blah. But research, more than being smart, research is about having uh, persistence, being persistent and being dedicated, and to learning how to deal with failure. Because failure, you are guaranteed to fail when you do research, and you have to come to terms with this. I don't think, at least when I was 20 years old, when I was in my second year, I was not I was not able to accept the fact that I could fail, because till then basically I had been fairly successful at almost everything I'd done. So this is a learning curve that comes with uh, yeah, when life gives you failures, learn to deal with them, I think is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, once you do that, you'll find that research is a very enjoyable experience. So yeah, be ready to explore stuff is all I'm saying. I'm not saying you should do research. I'm saying you should try to explore whatever options are available to you, and then come to a decision instead of being swayed by what other people say or what you might have thought about something before. That's all I say.
That's nice. That's nice. So yeah, with that, I think we come to an end of the podcast. So thanks a lot, Adway, for joining in,
Sure, sure.
and
Thank you for inviting.
yeah, thanks a lot, and yeah, thanks a lot to the audience for listening, and yeah, see you next time. Bye bye.